So this is going to be a quicker video just talking about what you want to be doing with your characters as far as gearing goes. I know that gearing in a lot of ways becomes a sort of untenable task for people who feel a bit overloaded with information, but as we can sort of see that like my Hitsugaya has a 19,000 power. You might be looking at it and you're like, oh, 19,000, that's pretty low. Well, there's a reason for that, right? One of the first things I want to sort of talk about as a component to gearing characters and why it's hard to get a handle on how strong they really are without just like looking at their stats is you can see first and foremost, look at that low crit rate. That's something I want to work on for sure. And as I sort of look around here, we can see other stats that definitely need tending to. We have 40% spirit damage bonus, but that crit rate is just so painfully low, right? Which is sad because Toshido is obviously a character who relies a lot on crit as his main like source of damage dealing. We can see that as obviously in his weapon here that he has a flat crit rate increase right here, right? So as we sort of move into like what the character might want, we can see that the character is kitted towards that end to get a big, you know, huge damaging blast of like damage off of his Bankai state. All right. So if you're using a character who is a nuker instead of a character who is just trying to output, you know, solid consistent damage, you're going to obviously want crit. Whereas, you know, maybe you're using a character like this and, you know, they're a wounding character, so you might want ailment increase. Well, there are rather two places you can go for suggestions on your build, and both of them thankfully start in game. So if you click bottom left of the character, that's right over here, if you see right here, if you click bottom left of the character, you can actually see what the developer suggests you put into this character. And the reason I'm making this video is because I actually saw a comment saying that they should change this to sort of adapt to the top 3% or however, that way you can get a, you know, updated look at what people are building. Well, as you stick with me, there actually is a solution for that. Like I said, I think a lot of people just come into, you know, these gachas and they want to use the characters. Maybe they're playing on the train or the bus, and, you know, they don't have time to just be like skulking around every single tab in this game. They're just trying to get events done in between work or what have you, classes, without much fuss, right? So here we have the recommended weapon stamp. You can see I don't actually have either, right? I haven't pulled either, sadly. Here we have the recommended core stamp. I do have this one, so I probably will be switching to this if I believe so. And here we have the recommended set, which I sort of assumed this was the recommended set. It's the one I'm on, right? Recommended basic lineup, we have Hitsugaya, Rukia, and Momo. And then recommended advanced lineup, we have Hitsugaya, Rukia, and Yurahara. So as we pull out of this, and I guess we can like just really quickly compare to a character like this. We have Inner Fang being used here, and see, I guess that's where I sort of am like, that's interesting, because that's not what I have him on, right? I actually have him on a Byakuya set. Here you can see that I do actually have his weapon, but I have not gotten his core stamp yet. And I do actually have access to both of the budget options. The only character I'm missing right now is Ikaku. I'm actually using Yoryu to fit in for his team because Koname is doing most of the damage on the team anyhow, so it hasn't really been an issue. Another statistic you might be seeing here is power. But before I get into that, I actually do want to just come over here. I'm actually using this stamp to increase his ultimate charge and battlefield skill. I think it's just too strong, but we'll sort of see. We'll sort of see where that goes. Maybe I should be making the switch, right? Maybe that is true. You see that I haven't actually put many levels into his gearing yet, so we'll have to continue on there. But as you see, he's sitting at 19,000 power. The big thing here is that even though he's level 60 and Toshido is level 70, he has an equivalent power to him, and that is because I actually do have his weapon. The first time I put my unique weapon onto this character here, he went from like 12,000, 13,000 to like 17,000, 18,000. And then when I put his stamp on, he went from that amount essentially to 21,000. This is something I talked about in another video, but the stamps and the unique stamps and weapon stamps are really invaluable, and I hope they do add a way to sort of consistently gain access to these in some way, even if it's like long term, that isn't the actual running of the event. The reason why ultimately is just going to be that the running of the event is pretty slow going, and it's random. If it wasn't random and it was just slow, it'd be fine, but it is completely random, and thus, like, you know, there is a world where I could literally never get Hitsugayas, right? As they continue to add characters, they continue to do this and that, like, there's a world where I could just not get this until I hit pity, right? It's just like a purely numbers game. Even though I have him level 70, even though I have him, you know, on level 20 gear, level 20, 25 gear, if I were to have this character's weapon and stamp, I mean, he might go to 25,000, 28,000. Like, he would gain a lot of stats. And that's what you see here from Yoruichi, who is a character that I actually do have their weapon and I do have their stamp, right? And as you go to Yoruichi, you can sort of see again, that I have access to essentially everything. The only thing I'm not using is Momo, and it's mostly because Kisuke is really good and I haven't found a super need to use Momo. You can actually see the recommended stamp setup here, and this is again what I am using, right? So the other thing you can do, and this is like more if you want to actually start poring over the information, and again, I'm sort of posting this because I saw people sort of confused about this, is there's a ranking tab right here. And you can see that my Yoruichi, completely free to play Yoruichi, is within the top 10% of, you know, Yoruichis in the game. So I won't make it like in this cut, but I'm under here, right? 7%. And you can like just go over and like, oh, where's some other characters, right? They have, you know, huge, you know, someone really loves Komomura here, right? They maxed him out. They love this character. And you can just continue to go through these and find whatever you're missing and upgrade your characters. The thing about this is that it is it's not so that you can be like, oh, what 1-to-1 should I be copying? Because obviously if you're not a whale, you're not going to have access to every single stat point here. But what you can do quickly is just be like, well, what main stat are they using? Oh, attack percent here, crit damage here, ultimate charge rate here, and then obviously their core stamps, which you might not have access to. You go through attack spirit damage here, which is what I have, crit damage here, attack percent here, and then any crit rate. No, so their crit rate isn't even like super large. It's actually just being carried by these two. So 52% here, and then damage here, right? So they actually are in need of, you know, crit rate gear, so that they're always critting would be nice. Again, 57 here, that's coming off of gear, so spirit damage here, 32% here, and then 11% here is really big. That's really big. So this character should always be critting. 30%. Yeah, they go up to like 87%, that's more than enough. Like I said, just going through, but like I said, if you can't imitate the weapon stamp, which is giving you flat stats and the crit rate, you can at least be like, well, what are the main stats I'm looking for when it comes to a character? Like, for example, what is Tosin up to, right? It does look like people are using that Komomura set, so I might be learning something today. I've been using the Byakuya set personally. Maybe I should hop onto the Komomura set. What is that doing? Each time battlefield deals damage, increases the next battlefield damage. Yeah, fair enough. All right, I guess it's something I should look into. But again, thrust damage pretty good. Defense here, they're just using this as a stand-in probably. Attack percent here, so pretty low on the crit rate, even though the guide was telling us to use crit, right? Like try to max out a crit. We have 79% crit rate here. So this is a pretty whatever piece of gear, it looks like. 32% crit rate, 11% crit rate right there, 46% crit rate total, 58% it looks like, and then yeah, just a bunch more stats and the like here. So ending up at 79%, however, right? And that's just what building characters is going to be like. This is the process. If you don't want to do this, you can just like you know, free ball it, figure it out. But especially when it comes to like these weaker level characters, like if I'm like on a Momo set, right, where Momo is not supposed to be the main damage character. Look at her over at 20,000, but you can sort of still just like get a feel for it, right? It's just like hidden wisdom. The entire team gains a boost for all damage. Makes so much sense. Strike damage, yeah, pretty lowly, right? Attack percent, yeah, pretty lowly. Just meant to be a fill-in character, not really meant to, you know, blow anything out the water or what have you. But you know, Ruki is a character I've been using a lot. You know, because obviously you can get her stamps really easily, and she just wants to be on her brother's set, which is the his like literal, you know, stamp. So ultimate refresh rate 40%, spirit damage, and attack percent. Like you could tell this is just kind of like fill-in gear. Like whatever works here will work on Rukia, right? You can see it gets a lot less specific, whereas the big SSRs, the big characters you want to actually be like building your teams around, you will want them to have like operate with a little more specificity, right? But thankfully for them, and I talked about this in another video, I believe, they're sort of bound to their own sets. A lot of times we do see that Tosin is on the Komomura set, but that also sort of makes a lot of plot relevant sense, because I believe Komomura, and this is like, I'm so sorry if I'm forgetting, I'm like misremembering this. This makes a lot of sense because I believe when he was leaving Soul Society the first time, that's who he ran into. And like I said, if I get that wrong, I apologize, but it has literally been like 15 years since I've seen that happen. You know what I mean? So bear with me when I say that. But yeah, this is going to be the process. This is going to be one of those videos that probably won't reach a lot of people. They probably won't have much interest in it. But I do think it's important to just sort of go through all of the ways in which you can just find this information, because there are a lot of games where you have to use an alternative site for this, but Bleach Soul Resonance just has it in game day one. And that is really important, because it means that there isn't a bunch of guesswork. When I play CZN, even though I can go like look at a site, or when I play Epic 7, I can go look at a site and figure out like what I want to be building. But the level of specificity you get in Bleach Soul Resonance from day one is really cool. This is usually a feature that gacha games add later, so I like this a lot. I do like this a lot, and hopefully they continue up with great quality of life inclusions like this in the future. But with all that being said, I've been Lone. Like, if you like the video, subscribe to the club. We all go make it, and peace.